2 more Americans dead as a result of the violence in Mexico. Those victims gunned down this week by drug cartel killers. Now, in addition to being U.S. citizens, they were also members of a large polygamist sect with roots on this side of the border. Gary Tuckman has been following this story. He joins us now live from El Paso, Texas. Gary, kind of an odd entwine here of 2 stories that 360 has been following very closely.
Well, that's right, Eric. Over the last several months and several years, for that matter, we've done a lot of stories about polygamy and a lot of stories about Mexican drug cartel violence. But we never imagined the 2 topics would mesh like this in a very tragic way. We're in El Paso, Texas. Just to our south is the Mexican state of Chihuahua. In Chihuahua, there's a small town that was founded about 80 years ago by American Mormons from Utah who went down there because they were angry the Mormon church decided to make polygamy against the religion. So they settled there. 80 years later, not all of the people are polygamists, but they are all very vocal against drug cartel violence. Well, apparently, they made members of the drug cartel very mad. This week, about 15 gunmen went inside one of the homes, dragged 2 men out of the homes who are both American citizens who have 10 children between them, and killed them in a very violent way.
How did hundreds and hundreds of American polygamists end up living in Mexico for the last 8 decades? After the mainstream Mormon church abandoned the practice of polygamy in the 1890s, not all Mormons were happy about it. Some groups that wanted to continue the practice of plural marriage broke off from the church. Some settled here on the Arizona-Utah border. Others who did not want interference from U.S. law enforcement moved north to British Columbia, Canada. And in 1924, the LeBaron family moved south to Mexico, 130 miles from El Paso, Texas, in the town of Galeana in the state of Chihuahua. It's where community members started the Church of the Firstborn of the Fullness of Times. They've lived here for a good part of a century. About 1,000 of them working as farmers, and though illegal in Mexico like the U.S., some still practice polygamy. Today, members of the LeBaron family are very well known in the local community for their opposition to the drug cartels and their kidnappings.
We want to be an inspiration and the conscience of all the afflicted people from kidnapping.
This man, 32-year-old Benjamin LeBaron, would not back down to the cartels after his 16-year-old brother Eric was kidnapped this past May. He refused to pay a $1 million ransom, but Eric was eventually released. Benjamin LeBaron held rallies and marched on the state capitol when another church member was kidnapped. Then earlier this week, the man you see in the video, Benjamin LeBaron, was killed, dragged from his home and shot gangland style. The LeBarons have been part of this Mexican community for decades, and with the recent drug violence crippling the country, they suffer along with them.
Gary, it seems pretty obvious that this killing was some sort of a message to this community that really had been fighting back. So what's the reaction been in the community? Are they essentially backing down?
Well, you're right. It was a message. There was a note found near the bodies that said, "We are very angry that 25 of our people were arrested following these killings, arrested for drug violations." They said, "Don't ever do it again." And there was a note. It was a warning, clearly. But the members of this town, Colonia LeBaron, said they will not back down. They admit they're scared. They say they don't have arms. Mexican weapons laws are very strict, so they don't have guns to protect themselves. That worries them. But they say they will continue to fight. They will continue to make an issue about this. At the very least, they want more protection from the state government in Chihuahua and the national government out of Mexico City.
All right.